Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Cheating Tales Lab. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know, what part of the world are you watching from right now? Let us know in the comments. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Perfect Illusions. Thomas Morrison stood in his mahogany-paneled office at Morrison & Associates, reviewing case files for his latest high-profile client. At 42, he'd built a reputation as Boston's most formidable criminal defense attorney. His success rate spoke for itself. 97% of his cases ended in his client's favor. The antique grandfather clock in the corner struck 7, its deep chimes echoing through the empty office. Another late night. Rebecca would understand. She always did. Or at least, that's what Thomas told himself. His phone buzzed with a text from his wife. "Don't forget the charity gala tomorrow night." James Bradford confirmed he's attending. Thomas's jaw tightened imperceptibly at the mention of Bradford. The pharmaceutical executive had reappeared in their lives 3 months ago through mutual friends, and something about the man's presence made Thomas's instincts flare. 20 years as a defense attorney had taught him to trust those instincts. He gathered his briefcase and headed home to their Beacon Hill Colonial. The house represented everything he'd achieved. The scholarship kid from a broken home who'd clawed his way through Stanford Law, building a life most people only dreamed of. The lights were still on when he pulled into the driveway. Through the kitchen window, he caught glimpses of Rebecca moving about, phone pressed to her ear. She was laughing. That particular laugh she reserved for people she wanted to impress. As Thomas approached the door, her voice dropped to a whisper. "I have to go," she said hurriedly. "He's home." Thomas entered the kitchen, noting how Rebecca quickly slipped her phone into her pocket. She wore a new dress he hadn't seen before, designer, by the look of it. Her blonde hair was freshly styled, makeup still perfect despite the late hour. "Another charity meeting?" he asked, keeping his tone neutral. "The Children's Hospital benefit needs extra attention this year," Rebecca replied, busying herself with reorganizing already pristine countertops. "James has some wonderful ideas for fundraising." "James seems to have ideas about everything lately." Thomas poured himself 2 fingers of scotch, watching Rebecca's reflection in the window. Her hands faltered slightly at his comment. "He's been incredibly generous with his time," she said. "The hospital board is fortunate to have him." Thomas took a slow sip of his scotch. "And how many board meetings require new Cartier bracelets?" Rebecca's hand automatically went to her wrist, where the diamond-studded bracelet gleamed. "This? I bought it myself. I told you about it last week." "No," Thomas said quietly. "You didn't." An uncomfortable silence filled the kitchen. Rebecca broke it first, her laugh slightly too high. "You've been so busy with work lately, darling. You probably just forgot. I'm heading up to bed. Don't stay up too late reviewing cases." Thomas watched her leave, noting the slight tremor in her steps. Once her footsteps faded, he moved silently through the house, pausing outside his children's rooms. Grace's light was still on, voices drifting through the gap under her door. He was about to knock when Nathan's words stopped him cold. "If they split up, who would you pick?" Thomas's hand froze inches from the door. His 16-year-old daughter's response shattered 2 decades of certainty. "Mom's new friend James, duh. He's taking us to Paris over spring break, and he promised me that Porsche I wanted for my birthday. Plus, Mom told me he's probably our biological father anyway. They were together in college. Makes sense why we both got blue eyes like him." The scotch glass nearly slipped from Thomas's grip. He caught it, years of courtroom control keeping his breathing steady despite the roaring in his ears. "Did Mom actually say that?" Nathan's voice was smaller, uncertain. "Yeah, last week when we had lunch with him at the Four Seasons. She said she and James were serious in college, but then something happened and they broke up. She met Dad right after. But she always kept in touch with James. Does Dad know?" Grace's laugh was painfully similar to Rebecca's. "Of course not. Mom says he wouldn't understand. James says it's better to wait until everything's arranged before telling him." "What does that mean?" "I don't know. Probably divorce stuff. James says he can make it really easy. He knows people who handle these things all the time." Thomas backed away from the door. Decades of courtroom experience the only thing keeping him upright. His mind raced through memories, recontextualizing moment with this new lens. Rebecca's unexpected pregnancy shortly after they started dating at Stanford, her insistence on maintaining certain social connections, the way she'd engineered James's re-entry into their lives. He moved to his home office, pulling up old photos on his laptop. How had he never noticed? Grace and Nathan's blue eyes, so different from his brown ones. The shape of their faces, their height, all James Bradford's features, not his. The betrayal ran deeper than mere infidelity. Rebecca had orchestrated an elaborate fraud, allowing him to raise another man's children while maintaining contact with their biological father. Bedtime story, scraped knee, proud moment, all built on lies. Thomas opened another browser tab, pulling up everything he could find about James Bradford. The man's pharmaceutical company, Bradford Pharmaceuticals, had grown exponentially over the past decade. Their specialties included cancer treatments and rare disease medications, high-profit drugs with limited oversight due to their specialized nature. A message popped up on his phone from Rebecca. Don't forget to sign those private school tuition checks for next semester. Love you. Thomas stared at the message, his attorney's mind already calculating. Rebecca had ensured all major financial decisions and responsibilities rested with him, while systematically alienating their children. No, her children, in preparation for whatever she and James had planned. He pulled up his banking records, noting patterns he'd overlooked before. Rebecca's charity expenses had increased significantly over the past year. Regular charges at high-end restaurants and hotels appeared on days she claimed to be at board meetings. The grandfather clock struck midnight as Thomas reached for his phone. He scrolled through his contacts until he found the number he needed, Detective Catherine Walsh. She answered on the second ring, despite the hour. Thomas? What's wrong? Catherine, I need every piece of information you can find on James Bradford. Focus on his time at Stanford and any cold cases from that period. This isn't like you, Thomas. What's going on? I think my wife and her lover are planning something, and I need to know exactly what kind of man James Bradford is before they make their move. Catherine's voice sharpened. Give me 48 hours. And Thomas? Be careful. Men with that kind of money usually have skeletons they're willing to kill to keep buried. Thomas ended the call, his decision made. He'd built his reputation defending others, but now he needed those skills for himself. Rebecca and James had orchestrated an elaborate deception, using his own children as pawns. They'd played a long game, patient and calculating. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated Thomas Morrison. In the courtroom, he was known for turning seemingly unwinnable cases into devastating victories. He'd grown up with nothing, fighting for every opportunity. The polished, successful attorney was a mask he wore. Underneath remained the street-smart survivor who'd learned early that mercy was a luxury he couldn't afford. He opened his safe, removing an unmarked phone he kept for certain clients. It was time to activate contacts he hadn't used in years, people whose methods weren't strictly legal but whose results were guaranteed. As he programmed numbers into the burner phone, Thomas allowed himself a cold smile. Rebecca and James thought they were arranging a clean, simple divorce. They were about to discover just how messy things could get when you betrayed the wrong man. Before leaving his office, Thomas opened one final file on his laptop, a detailed dossier on Charlotte Hayes, a Stanford student who died under mysterious circumstances during his final year of law school. He remembered the case vaguely. A drowning ruled accidental despite some odd circumstances. James Bradford's name had been mentioned in the investigation, but nothing had come of it. Let's see what other secrets you're hiding, James, Thomas muttered, sending the file to Catherine. He had built his life on understanding human nature, specifically, how people's past actions predicted their future behavior. If James Bradford had gotten away with something 20 years ago, those same instincts would still be there, waiting to be exposed. Thomas left the house at midnight, the weight of his concealed carry permit pressing against his side. He drove aimlessly through Boston's empty streets, his mind crystallizing plans within plans. Rebecca and James wanted to destroy the life he'd built. Fine, he would let them try. But first, he would do what he did best: gather evidence, identify weaknesses, and construct an airtight case. Then, when the moment was right, he would demonstrate exactly why Boston's criminal underworld referred to him as the Butcher. not for any physical violence, but for his ability to systematically dismantle opponents until nothing remained of their lives, reputations, or futures. The city lights blurred past as Thomas drove, his expression hardening into the mask his opponents never saw until it was too late. Rebecca had wished for a clean divorce. Instead, she would learn what happened when you declared war on a man who'd spent his life perfecting the art of destruction within the bounds of law. Let the games begin. Chapter 2. Desperate Measures. The call came at 6 a.m., jolting Thomas from his strategic planning. Nathan's voice cracked with panic. "Dad, where are you? You need to come home now. I found something on James's phone when he left it charging in the kitchen last night." Thomas had spent the night in his downtown office, making calls and arranging pieces on his mental chessboard. "I'll meet you in the garden in 20 minutes. Don't tell anyone we spoke." He arrived home to find Nathan pacing beneath the old oak tree, his 14-year-old son's face pale with fear. Thomas guided him to the stone bench hidden from the house's view by carefully maintained hedges. "Show me," Thomas commanded quietly. Nathan's hands trembled as he pulled out his phone. "James stayed over last night after you left. Said he and Mom needed to discuss charity stuff. He left his phone charging while they were in the study, and I knew something wasn't right." Thomas scrolled through the screenshots Nathan had taken, each image confirming his worst suspicions. The messages between James and Rebecca detailed elaborate plans. Offshore accounts being set up in the Cayman Islands, strategies for discrediting Thomas professionally, and most damningly, discussions about making him disappear during an upcoming business trip. "He's planning to have you killed, Dad," Nathan whispered, tears streaming down his face. "Mom knows about it. She said it would be cleaner than a divorce." One message particularly stood out. "James, everything's arranged for Boston Harbor. Our friend will make it look like an accident during the Chen case depositions." "Rebecca, you're sure it can't be traced back?" "James, that's why we're paying premium. The same team handled the Hayes situation 20 years ago. No loose ends." Thomas's jaw clenched. The casual reference to Charlotte Hayes confirmed his suspicions about her death. He turned to Nathan, studying his son's face. Despite the different colored eyes, he saw his own determination reflected there. "Why did you show me this?" Thomas asked carefully. "They told you I'm not your biological father." Nathan's chin lifted defiantly. "Because you're the one who taught me to ride a bike. You're the one who sat up with me all night when I had pneumonia. You're the one who showed up to every stupid middle school band concert, even when you had important cases. DNA doesn't make a father. Actions do." Thomas placed a hand on Nathan's shoulder, feeling the boy trembling. "What they're planning is murder. You understand what showing me this means?" "It means I chose justice over blood," Nathan replied, his voice steadying. "I chose the father who earned the title over the one who just provided genetic material." "This has to stay between us," Thomas said. "Act normal. Don't let them suspect you know anything. Can you do that?" Nathan nodded, wiping his eyes. "I've been practicing since I found the messages. Grace, she's totally under their spell. The promises of Paris and cars and fancy schools. She doesn't see what they really are." "Go back inside," Thomas instructed. "Get ready for school. Remember, everything normal." Once Nathan disappeared into the house, Thomas pulled out his burner phone. The first call went to Catherine Walsh. "I need everything you have on Bradford now," he said without preamble. "And I mean everything. He's planning something at Boston Harbor during the Chun depositions." Catherine's voice was grim. "It's worse than we thought, Thomas. My team found connections between Bradford Pharmaceuticals and a shell company called Oceanic Solutions. They provide maritime security services, but their real business is making people disappear at sea. 3 executives who opposed Bradford's company takeovers have had accidents on their boats in the past 5 years. The Hayes case, we're reopening it. Charlotte's sister Diana is a cybersecurity expert now. She's been privately investigating her sister's death for years. She has evidence suggesting James Bradford arranged Charlotte's drowning when she threatened to expose his involvement in illegal drug trials at Stanford." Thomas processed this information, his plans adapting. "I need to meet Diana Hayes. Today. She's already on her way to Boston." "Thomas, there's more. Bradford's pharmaceutical empire? It's built on fraud. They've been falsifying drug trial data, hiding deadly side effects, and bribing FDA officials. The Paris trip he's planning with Rebecca and the kids? It coincides with a federal investigation that's about to go public. He's running, Thomas concluded, taking my family with him as cover while he escapes the jurisdiction. Yes, but Thomas, be careful. Men like Bradford don't just kill their enemies. They destroy everything their enemies care about first. Thomas ended the call, his mind racing through implications. The pieces were falling into place. James Bradford, faced with exposure of his crimes, was orchestrating an elaborate exit strategy. Rebecca, either willingly or through manipulation, was helping him eliminate loose ends, with Thomas being the largest loose end of all. His phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. "Where are you? We need to discuss the children's spring break plans." Thomas typed back, "Tied up with the Chin case. Having dinner with the partners tonight." "Don't wait up." The lie came easily. Let them think he was focused on work, unaware of their plans. Every good trap required the perfect bait. He made another call, this time to Adrian Reynolds, his former mentor and now a federal judge. The older man answered immediately. "Thomas, I was hoping you'd call. I need warrants, Adrian. The kind that won't appear in any official records until after they're executed. You're talking about black warrants. That's dangerous territory. Bradford Pharmaceuticals is killing people. I have evidence of FDA fraud, illegal trials, and multiple murders. But I need the warrants held back until exactly the right moment." Adrian was silent for a long moment. "This is personal, isn't it? He's trying to kill me and take my children out of the country. So yes, it's personal. What you're planning could end your career. If I don't stop him, my career will be the least of my concerns." Adrian sighed heavily. "I'll have the warrants prepared. But Thomas? Remember what you told me when you defended Catherine Walsh. Sometimes justice requires sacrifice." "I haven't forgotten," Thomas replied coldly. "Bradford and Rebecca are about to learn exactly how much I'm willing to sacrifice to protect what's mine." He ended the call and pulled up his calendar. The Chun case depositions were scheduled for next week at his Harborside office. Bradford's team would expect him to be distracted by the high-profile case, making it the perfect opportunity for an accident. Thomas allowed himself a grim smile. They thought they were arranging his death. Instead, they were walking into an elaborate trap 20 years in the making. Bradford had gotten away with murder once before. This time, Thomas would ensure justice was served, not just for Charlotte Hayes, but for every life Bradford had destroyed in his ruthless climb to power. Let them plot their perfect crime. Thomas Morrison had built his career on turning perfect crimes into perfect prosecutions. And this time, it was personal. Chapter 3. The Past Resurfaces. Diana Hayes entered Thomas's office precisely at noon, her resemblance to her dead sister Charlotte striking even after 20 years. She carried herself with the rigid posture of someone who had spent 2 decades pursuing justice, her dark eyes evaluating Thomas. "Catherine Walsh says you have evidence linking James Bradford to my sister's murder," she stated without preamble, placing an encrypted laptop on his desk. Thomas slid a file across to her. "These are records from Stanford's archived security logs. Bradford's ID card accessed the pool facility 10 minutes before Charlotte was found." Diana's fingers tightened on her laptop. The police said the security system was down that night. It was for the main entrance. But the maintenance door had a separate logger. Bradford didn't know about it. Thomas leaned forward. "Tell me what really happened that night." Diana opened her laptop, pulling up decades-old files with practiced efficiency. Charlotte was a biochemistry major, brilliant at analyzing trial data. She was interning at Bradford's first pharmaceutical startup, just a small research company back then. She found discrepancies in their trial results for a new cancer drug. What kind of discrepancies? Patients dying from unrelated complications, data altered to hide severe side effects. Charlotte confronted James about it. Diana's voice hardened. "A week later, my sister, a champion swimmer since childhood, supposedly drowned during a late-night swim." Thomas studied the complex web of financial transactions on Diana's screen. "You've been tracking him since then." "Move. Shell company. Suspicious death connected to his corporations." Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Bradford Pharmaceuticals isn't just a company. It's a sophisticated criminal enterprise. They test experimental drugs on unknowing patients, falsify results, and eliminate anyone who threatens to expose them. Like they're planning to eliminate me, Thomas said quietly. Diana's head snapped up. What? Thomas showed her the screenshots from Nathan. Diana read them, her expression darkening. The same signature as Charlotte's death, making it look like an accident, using untraceable offshore accounts to pay the killers. I need everything you have on Bradford's operation, Thomas said. Every piece of evidence you've gathered over 20 years. In return, I'm giving you what you've always wanted. A chance to bring him down, permanently. Diana studied him intently. Catherine said you were one of the good ones. That's why I came. But this isn't just about justice for Charlotte anymore, is it? No, Thomas admitted. He's trying to steal my family, kill me, and escape justice for his crimes. I won't let that happen. What's your plan? Thomas outlined his strategy, watching Diana's expression shift from skepticism to calculated interest. Bradford's weakness is his arrogance, he explained. He believes he's untouchable because he's never faced an opponent who could match his ruthlessness within the law. And you can? I've spent 20 years defending clients against federal prosecution. I know tactic, procedure, loophole. More importantly, I know how to construct a case that's impossible to escape. Diana nodded slowly. I have bank records showing payments to FDA officials, emails about falsified trial data, and surveillance footage of Bradford meeting with known hitmen. She paused. But the most damaging evidence is about the children. Thomas's expression didn't change. What about them? Bradford didn't just have an affair with Rebecca. He orchestrated your entire relationship. Emails from back then show he pushed her to pursue you specifically because of your potential as a lawyer. He wanted someone successful raising his children, someone who could be easily discredited if they ever discovered the truth. The revelation hit Thomas like a physical blow, but years of courtroom experience kept his face neutral. Every moment of his marriage had been a calculated manipulation. Yet the rage that filled him wasn't hot. It was ice-cold, crystallizing his resolve. When can you have the evidence ready? Give me 48 hours to compile everything. But Thomas... Diana hesitated. Bradford's killed everyone who's threatened him. Why do you think you'll succeed where others failed? Thomas's smile was devoid of warmth. Because unlike his other opponents, I understand how predators think. I've spent my career defending them, learning their patterns, their weaknesses. Bradford's used to attacking from the shadows. Let's see how he handles an enemy who drags everything into the light. He pulled up his calendar, showing Diana the Chen case schedule. Bradford's team will make their move during these depositions. That gives us 1 week to prepare our counterattack. Diana's fingers moved across her keyboard again. I'm sending you encrypted files about Bradford's current operations. His company is running illegal trials in Eastern Europe, testing dangerous drugs on desperate patients. The FDA investigation is close to exposing everything. That's why he's accelerating his plans, Thomas mused. He needs to eliminate threats and escape before the investigation goes public. He turned to Diana. What do you need to make this work? Access to secure servers, protection for my evidence, and... She met his gaze. Assurance that when the time comes, you won't back down. Bradford will threaten everything you care about. He already has, Thomas replied coldly. That was his mistake. Diana nodded, understanding the steel beneath his controlled exterior. I'll contact my sources in federal cybercrime. We'll need their cooperation when this breaks. Thomas's phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. Grace's college counselor wants to meet tomorrow. James offered to attend since you're busy with the Chun case. He showed Diana the message. Her expression hardened. They're moving faster than we thought. Bradford's laying groundwork to demonstrate his parental involvement. Let them, Thomas said. Every move they make adds evidence to our case. He typed a reply. Fine. I have depositions to prepare. Diana began gathering her equipment. I'll need complete access to your firm's secure network. Bradford will have people watching your official communications. Catherine Walsh will arrange it. Work from her offices. They're swept for surveillance daily. Thomas handed her an encrypted phone. Use this to contact me. Bradford's probably monitoring my regular numbers. After Diana left, Thomas sat in his darkened office, reviewing years of Bradford Pharmaceuticals' financial records. The pattern was clear. Behind the legitimate business facade lay a complex criminal enterprise built on fraud, corruption, and murder. His phone buzzed again. A message from Nathan. Mom's taking us to dinner with James tonight. Says they have big news about spring break. Thomas's jaw tightened. They were accelerating their timeline, trying to cement James's position in his children's lives before eliminating him. Fine. Let them play their game. He opened his safe, removing files he'd kept for years, records of questionable client, suspicious transaction, piece of dirt he'd gathered but never used. Thomas Morrison hadn't become Boston's top defense attorney by being naive. He'd kept insurance against this type of betrayal, building an arsenal of information that could destroy countless powerful people. Now it was time to use it. He made one final call to Catherine Walsh. Have your team ready. When this breaks, it's going to be nuclear. Are you sure about this, Thomas? Once we start, there's no going back. They declared war on me, Catherine. Now they'll learn what that really means. Thomas ended the call, watching night settle over Boston through his office window. In the distance, he could see the harbor where Bradford's team planned to arrange his accident. The same harbor where, 20 years ago, Charlotte Hayes had died for threatening to expose the truth. History had a way of repeating itself. But this time, the ending would be different. Let Rebecca and James play their games. Thomas had something they didn't. The patience of a man who'd spent his life studying how to destroy people legally. By the time he was done, they'd realized that true revenge wasn't about violence. It was about systematic, complete annihilation of everything they held dear. The game was set. Now it was time to play. Chapter 4. Building the Case. Diana Hayes stood in Thomas Morrison's downtown office at dawn, her equipment already set up on his conference table. 3 monitors displayed different aspects of James Bradford's empire: financial records, personnel files, and surveillance footage. Your wife wasn't his first accomplice, Diana said, pulling up encrypted emails. Bradford's been grooming vulnerable women for years. He finds them when they're young, desperate for connection. Then he uses them to infiltrate targeted organizations. Thomas studied the pattern of relationships and strategic positions. How many? 7 that we've confirmed. 3 ended up dead when they threatened to expose him. 2 disappeared completely. Offshore accounts suggest payoffs. The other 2... Diana paused. One's your wife. The other is my sister's best friend from college, who conveniently couldn't remember anything about the night Charlotte died. Catherine Walsh entered, carrying files marked with federal case numbers. Bradford's pharmaceutical operation goes deeper than money laundering. They're running illegal drug trials in Eastern Europe using desperate terminal patients as test subjects. When the trials go wrong, they falsify death certificates showing natural causes. How many deaths? Thomas's voice remained steady, but his fingers tightened on his coffee cup. At least 37 confirmed cases in the past 5 years. Probably hundreds more we can't prove yet. Catherine spread photos across the desk, patients before and after Bradford's miracle treatments. Thomas absorbed the evidence. We need more than documentation. Bradford's lawyers will claim these are forgeries. That's where I come in, Diana said, typing rapidly. I've infiltrated their secure servers. Email, transaction, deleted file. I can prove chain of custody. But there's something else you need to see. She pulled up a series of messages between Bradford and Rebecca from 15 years ago. Thomas read them silently, his expression hardening. He never lost touch with her, Diana explained. They've been planning this for years. Your entire marriage was orchestrated to position you as the perfect fall guy. A respected attorney with access to offshore accounts and connections to criminal clients. When you die, Bradford's crimes get pinned on you. The ultimate frame job, Catherine added. They even have forged documents showing you've been helping Bradford launder money through your client trust accounts. Thomas stood, moving to his private office. He returned with a heavy safe box. Then it's time to use what I've been saving for exactly this scenario. Inside lay 16 years of insurance, photographs, recorded conversations, client confessions, judges' indiscretions, everything a top defense attorney accumulated but never used. Until now. First, we need to contact Adrian Reynolds, Thomas said. As a federal judge, he can make sure the warrants come from clean sources Bradford can't challenge. Catherine pulled out her phone. Adrian's expecting us. But Thomas, what he's asking in return, are you sure? My career for Bradford's destruction? That's a trade I'll make. They drove to Adrian's chambers in separate cars, taking different routes. The judge's secretary recognized Thomas, buzzing them through without question. Adrian Reynolds sat behind his massive desk, already reviewing case files. You understand what you're asking? Adrian fixed Thomas with a stern gaze. These warrants won't just expose Bradford. They'll reveal client secret you've kept, deal you've made. Your reputation as a defense attorney will be finished. My reputation was built on lies, Thomas replied. Bradford and Rebecca made sure of that. Now we use those lies to destroy them. Adrian nodded slowly. I've known you since you were a first-year law student, Thomas. You've never been the man they think you are, the one who'd look the other way for a comfortable life. You've been playing a role, waiting for the right moment. The moment's here. Thomas placed a USB drive on Adrian's desk. Everything I've gathered on judicial corruption in the circuit. Use it however you need to get those warrants. Diana stepped forward. I can prove electronic chain of custody for every document. When Bradford's lawyers challenge the evidence, it will hold up. Adrian began drafting orders. Give me 48 hours. But Thomas, once this starts, there's no going back. Bradford's pharmaceutical empire has tentacles everywhere. Politicians, judges, doctors. They'll all fight to protect themselves. Good. Thomas's smile held no warmth. Let them show their hands. Every person who tries to help Bradford becomes another target for prosecution. Catherine's phone buzzed. Nathan just texted. Bradford's taking him and Grace to look at private schools in Switzerland next week. He's accelerating the timeline. Thomas checked his watch. Diana, how long to access Bradford's travel records? Already done. She pulled up flight reservations. Private jet booked to Geneva. Rebecca's name isn't on the manifest. Because she's expendable now, Thomas said. Once Bradford has the kids safely away, Rebecca becomes a liability. There's more, Diana added. Bradford's liquidating assets through untraceable cryptocurrencies. Over 200 million moved in the past week alone. Thomas absorbed this information, adjusting his mental chess game. Bradford wasn't just planning an escape. He was orchestrating a complete disappearance. The private schools were a smokescreen. Once the children were out of U.S. jurisdiction, they'd vanish into Bradford's international network. Adrian, we need those warrants now, Thomas said. Bradford's not waiting 48 hours. The judge studied him carefully. Using them early burns our advantage of surprise. Bradford's lawyers will start fighting them immediately. Better than letting him escape with my children. Thomas laid out his revised strategy. Diana provides electronic evidence linking Bradford to Charlotte's murder. Catherine's team moves simultaneously on the pharmaceutical fraud. When Bradford's lawyers respond, that's when we reveal Rebecca's testimony about his entire operation. A three-pronged attack, Adrian mused. But you're gambling everything on Rebecca cooperating. Thomas's expression turned glacial. She'll cooperate. Because if she doesn't, I'll make sure she faces charges as an accessory to every crime Bradford's committed in the past 20 years. Catherine raised an eyebrow. That's ruthless, even for you. They plan to murder me and steal my children. Thomas's voice remained perfectly controlled. They haven't begun to understand the meaning of ruthless. Diana's laptop chimed with an alert. Bradford's making a move. Large wire transfers to accounts in Dubai and Singapore. He's getting ready to run. Thomas checked his phone. A message from Grace. Dad, weird question, but did you really embezzle money from your clients? James said the FBI has proof, and that's why you've been working late. Mom's crying. They're starting their smear campaign, Thomas said. Perfect. Let them think I'm distracted defending myself. Diana, leak some of those forged documents Bradford created. Make him think his plan is working. Adrian finished signing preliminary orders. You're officially under investigation as of now, Thomas. I'm sorry, but we need Bradford to believe he's winning. Thomas straightened his tie, every movement precise. Don't be sorry. Bradford thinks he's destroying me? I've spent 16 years preparing to destroy him. He just doesn't know it yet. Chapter 5. The First Strike. Thomas waited precisely 3 days before launching his initial attack. He filed for divorce on a quiet Tuesday morning, citing irreconcilable differences. The timing was deliberate. Rebecca had just finished lunch with her society friends, where she'd been subtly spreading rumors about Thomas's supposed ethical violations. His attorney delivered the papers to her at the country club, ensuring maximum public exposure. Rebecca's hands trembled as she read the documents, her carefully maintained facade cracking when she reached the attached evidence files. Thomas's phone rang within minutes. "How dare you serve me here?" Rebecca hissed. "In front of everyone? We need to talk," Thomas replied calmly. "My office. 1 hour. Come alone. I'm calling James's lawyers." "No, you're not. Because if you do, the next documents being served will be federal indictments naming you as a co-conspirator in 2 decades of fraud and murder." 1 hour, Rebecca. He ended the call, turning to Catherine Walsh, who sat quietly in the corner of his office. "She'll come. Her survival instinct is too strong." Catherine nodded. "Diana's monitoring all her communications. The moment she contacts Bradford, she won't." Thomas adjusted his desk slightly. "Rebecca's spent 20 years manipulating people. She'll try to handle this herself first." Exactly 58 minutes later, Rebecca swept into his office. She'd changed into a conservative blue suit, her makeup perfect, silver crucifix gleaming at her throat. The very picture of a wronged Christian wife. "Whatever you think you know," she began, "you don't understand." "Sit down." Thomas's voice could have frozen flame. "Looking through those files?" Rebecca sank into the chair, her rehearsed speech dying on her lips. Thomas laid out photographs one by one. Her secret meetings with Bradford over the years, offshore account statements, email exchanges about their plans. "I know everything," he said quietly. "About James, about the children's paternity, about Charlotte Hayes, about your plans for me. The only question is whether you want to go down with him." "He said he'd take care of everything," Rebecca whispered, her composure finally breaking. "That we'd be free to start over. The kids would have their real father." "The kids have their real father," Thomas replied, each word precise as a surgeon's cut. "The one who raised them, who loves them, who would die to protect them. James Bradford is just a donor and a murderer." Rebecca's face went pale. "You can't prove." "Charlotte Hayes." Thomas pulled out another file. "You knew about that too, didn't you? How James arranged her accident when she threatened to expose his illegal drug trials. Did you help him plan that murder like you're helping plan mine?" "I never." Rebecca's voice cracked. "I didn't know about Charlotte. Not until later. James said it was necessary, that she would have destroyed everything. Like I need to be destroyed?" Thomas's voice remained deadly calm. "How are they going to do it, Rebecca? Stage an accident during my morning swim? Push me off my boat? Or something more direct?" Tears streaked Rebecca's perfect makeup. "You don't understand what James is capable of. If I don't help him, I understand exactly what he's capable of. The question is whether you want to be charged as his accomplice in multiple murders, or—" Thomas paused deliberately. "If you'd prefer to help us bring him down." Rebecca's survival instinct visibly kicked in. "What kind of help?" "Full cooperation. Detail of his operation. Crime you know about. Plan you've made together." Thomas slid a document across the desk. "Sign this, and the U.S. Attorney's Office will grant you immunity from prosecution." Her hands shook as she read the agreement. "The children are not part of this negotiation." Thomas's tone could have cut diamond. "You lost any right to them the moment you conspired to have their father murdered. I am their mother. You're an accomplice to multiple murders who's been poisoning them against their family." Thomas leaned forward. "Sign the agreement, Rebecca. It's the only way you leave this office without handcuffs." She signed, her perfect penmanship faltering slightly. "What happens now?" "Now you tell us everything. Starting with Bradford's plans for the children." Rebecca's composure crumbled entirely. For the next 2 hours, she detailed 20 years of deception, manipulation, and crime. Catherine Walsh recorded everything, occasionally stepping in with clarifying questions. The Paris trip, Catherine pressed. What's the real purpose? James has properties there under different names, Rebecca admitted. Once the children are out of U.S. jurisdiction, he'll move them somewhere else. Somewhere Thomas can't reach them. And you agreed to this? Catherine's disgust was evident. James said it was the only way to keep them safe. Rebecca dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. He said Thomas would turn them against us once he knew the truth about their paternity. No, Thomas cut in, his voice arctic. You turned them against me. Time you whispered poison in their ears. Time you let them believe I was a criminal. Time you chose Bradford over their happiness. Rebecca flinched. I loved you, Thomas. In the beginning. No. Thomas stood, his controlled fury filling the room. You never loved me. I was a convenient cover story, a respectable father for Bradford's children. Everything about our marriage was a lie. Not everything, Rebecca whispered. Not the children. They love you. Grace doesn't. Thomas's voice held no emotion. You made sure of that. Does it make you proud, Rebecca? Turning our daughter against me with promises of cars and trips? Fresh tears spilled. I can fix it. I can tell Grace the truth. You'll do exactly what the immunity agreement requires, Thomas interrupted. Nothing more. Nothing less. The children are no longer your concern. Rebecca stood on shaky legs. What do I tell James? Nothing. You go home. You act normal. When he contacts you, you tell him I'm distracted fighting the FBI investigation. If you warn him, if you deviate one word from this script, Thomas let the threat hang. He'll kill me if he finds out. Then pray our case is airtight. Thomas opened his office door. Catherine will arrange protection for you. But Rebecca, if you betray us, prison will be the least of your worries. After she left, Catherine turned to Thomas. That was brutal. She helped plan my murder. Thomas replied simply. She should be grateful brutality is all she faced. Chapter 6. Counterattack. James Bradford's response came swiftly and brutally. At 6 a.m., FBI agents stormed Thomas's law offices, waving warrants based on anonymous tips about evidence tampering. By noon, his biggest clients had received detailed letters outlining supposed ethical violations spanning years. They're better forgeries than I expected, Thomas remarked, examining the fabricated documents Diana had intercepted. He sat in Catherine Walsh's office, watching the raid unfold on security feeds. Bradford's getting sloppy, though. The metadata shows these were created last week. Catherine raised an eyebrow. You seem awfully calm for a man whose office is being torn apart. Because everything they're seizing was planted there deliberately. Thomas sipped his coffee. The real records are safe. Have been for years. Diana's voice came through the secure phone line. Bradford's people just breached your home office. They're downloading files from your private server. Right on schedule. How long until they realize those files are honeypots? Given the encryption? Diana paused, typing rapidly. They'll need at least 6 hours to crack them. When they do, they'll find exactly what you wanted Bradford to see. Thomas's phone buzzed with a call from Grace. He put it on speaker. Dad? There are FBI agents at the house. Mom's crying. What's going on? Grace, I need you to stay calm. Thomas kept his voice steady. These are just allegations. Everything will be cleared up soon. James says they have proof you've been stealing from clients. Grace's voice turned accusatory. He showed me the documents. How could you? Did he? And what else has James been telling you? That you're dangerous. That you might try to stop us from leaving with him. But he'll protect us. Like he protected Charlotte Hayes? A pause. Who's Charlotte Hayes? Ask him. Ask him about the Stanford student who died 20 years ago. Ask him why the case went cold when evidence disappeared. You're lying. James says you'll try to turn us against him. No, Grace. That's what your mother and James have been doing to you. Turning you against me with promises and lies. Thomas's voice hardened. But the truth is coming out. All of it. The line went dead. Thomas looked at Catherine. How long until Bradford's team finds the hidden files? Based on their current progress, she checked Diana's data. 3 hours at most. Good. That gives us time to position everyone. Thomas pulled up a secure messaging app. Adrian's judges are standing by with the real warrants. The moment Bradford's team thinks they've found evidence to destroy me, we destroy him instead, Catherine finished. A commotion outside drew their attention. Through the glass walls, they watched as Nathan pushed past security guards, clutching his phone. "Dad!" Nathan burst in, breathing hard. "I got it. I got everything." Thomas's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. "Show me." Nathan pulled up videos on his phone. The first showed James Bradford in their kitchen, speaking quietly with Rebecca. "Once Thomas is gone, we'll move the kids somewhere safe," Bradford was saying. "The evidence we planted will convince everyone he died covering up his crimes. The grieving widow and children get sympathy, not suspicion." The next video was even more damning. Bradford at his office, instructing someone on speakerphone, "Make it look like an accident during the Chen case depositions. Once Morrison's dead, we use his client accounts to hide the drug trial data. His reputation takes the fall. We get the kids and everyone wins." "When did you record these?" Catherine asked, impressed. "After I found those first messages about wanting Dad dead." Nathan's chin lifted proudly. "I started recording everything. James likes to brag when he thinks no one's listening. I have hours more just like this." Thomas studied his son. Not his biological son, but his in every way that mattered. "You understand how dangerous this was?" "I understand what they were planning to do to you." Nathan met his father's gaze. "I chose justice over blood." A message flashed on Diana's secure line. Bradford's team cracked the first layer of encrypted files. They think they found evidence of Thomas laundering money through offshore accounts. "Let them celebrate," Thomas said coldly. "Nathan, I need you to go home. Act normal. Let Grace believe whatever Bradford's telling her for now. But trust me." Thomas gripped his son's shoulder. "The truth will come out soon enough. But first, we need Bradford to think he's winning." After Nathan left, Catherine turned to Thomas. "Using your own son as a spy. That's cold." "No colder than Bradford using him as a pawn." Thomas checked his watch. "How long until the second layer of files decrypts?" 2 hours. That's when they find the apparent evidence linking you to Charlotte's death." "Perfect." Thomas began typing instructions to Adrian. "Bradford thinks he's orchestrating my downfall. He doesn't realize every move he makes pulls the noose tighter around his own neck." Diana's voice crackled through the secure line. "Thomas, Grace just booked a flight to Paris. One way, leaving tomorrow." "No, she didn't." Thomas allowed himself a small smile. "Bradford's people just tried to book it using her details. The airline will mysteriously cancel it within the hour." "You knew he'd try this?" "I know how predators think, Diana. Bradford's getting desperate. The harder he pushes, the more mistakes he'll make." As if on cue, Thomas's office phone rang. The caller ID showed James Bradford's private number. "Right on time," Thomas murmured. He put the call on speaker. "Bradford, Morrison." Bradford's voice oozed false sympathy. "I just heard about the FBI raid. Terrible business. But I might be able to help, if you're willing to be reasonable about the children's travel plans." "Blackmail, James? I expected better from you." "Think of it as negotiation. You sign over custody, drop this ridiculous investigation into my business dealings, and perhaps some of that damaging evidence disappears." Thomas's voice turned arctic. "Like the evidence about Charlotte Hayes disappeared?" A slight pause. "Careful, Morrison. False accusations can be dangerous." "Nothing false about it, James. Would you like to know what else isn't false?" "The videos Nathan recorded of you planning my murder." The silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" "Check your secure server access logs. Someone's been inside your system for months, finding interesting conversations about drug trials, offshore accounts, and convenient accidents. If you had proof, you'd have used it already." "Oh, I am using it." Thomas's smile was audible. "Right now, in fact. While you're focused on destroying me, you should really pay attention to what's happening to your own organization." Bradford's composure cracked slightly. "What are you talking about?" "Check your accounts, James. All of them. Especially the ones you think are untraceable." The line went dead. Seconds later, Diana reported. He's logging into his hidden accounts. Now he's trying to access the Cayman Islands transfers. His entire network is locked down for suspicious activity. How long until he realizes it's not a glitch? Catherine asked. Long enough. Thomas stood, straightening his tie. Bradford thought he could use my own family to destroy me. Time to show him what real destruction looks like. His phone buzzed with a text from Grace. Dad, something's wrong with the Paris tickets, and James is acting weird. What's really going on? Now she starts asking questions, Catherine observed. Now she sees cracks in Bradford's perfect facade. Thomas began typing a response. The truth will do what our warnings couldn't. Show her exactly who James Bradford really is. Diana's voice turned urgent. Thomas, Bradford's called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. He's trying to liquidate assets before the real warrants hit. Thomas nodded. Perfect. Let him gather all his co-conspirators in one place. Makes serving indictments so much more efficient. Catherine studied her old friend. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Enjoying? No. Thomas's expression hardened. But when someone tries to steal your children and take your life, you don't just defeat them. You make sure they never have the power to hurt anyone else again. The pieces were in position. Bradford's counterattack had played directly into Thomas's hands. Now it was time for the final phase, the complete and systematic dismantling of everything James Bradford had built. Let him think he was winning. Let him believe Thomas was on the defensive. The trap was set, and Bradford was walking right into it. Thomas's phone buzzed one final time. A message from Adrian. Federal agents are in position. Give the word and we end this. Not yet, Thomas replied. First, let's see how Bradford handles losing control of his perfect plan. The endgame was approaching. Bradford had unleashed his full arsenal, thinking he was destroying Thomas Morrison. Instead, he'd handed Thomas everything needed to destroy him. The real question wasn't whether Bradford would fall, but how many of his co-conspirators he'd drag down with him. Chapter 7. The Trap. The annual pharmaceutical industry gala buzzed with Boston's elite at the Fairmont Copley Plaza. Crystal chandeliers illuminated silk gowns, and Italian suits as waiters circulated with champagne and canapes. James Bradford held court at his usual table, surrounded by sycophants and industry power players. James Bradford's table is positioned exactly as requested, Diana Hayes reported through Thomas's earpiece. She monitored the operation from a surveillance van outside, surrounded by screens showing every angle of the ballroom. All cameras and displays are under our control. Catherine Walsh's voice joined in. My people are in position. 12 detectives scattered through the crowd, all looking appropriately wealthy and vapid. Thomas adjusted his cufflinks, surveying the scene from the mezzanine. Adrian? Ready. The federal judge confirmed. Warrants are signed and sealed. The moment we move, every account Bradford controls freezes simultaneously. Thomas watched Grace and Nathan enter with Rebecca. His daughter wore a new designer dress, another gift from Bradford, no doubt. Nathan's expression remained carefully neutral, playing his role perfectly. Nathan's wearing the recording device? Thomas asked. Signals crystal clear. Diana confirmed. Every word Bradford says gets captured with perfect chain of custody. Thomas descended the grand staircase, noting how conversations hushed slightly as he passed. Bradford's smear campaign had done its work. Boston's social elite now viewed Thomas Morrison as damaged goods, a once-respected attorney facing criminal investigation. Perfect. Bradford's smirk widened as Thomas approached his table. Morrison, brave of you to show your face here. Or desperate. Hello, James. Thomas's voice carried just far enough to draw attention from nearby tables. Enjoying your moment? Come now. There's no need for hostility. Bradford gestured expansively. Though I hear the FBI's quite interested in your client accounts. Terrible business, that. Interesting you should mention business. Thomas moved closer, forcing Bradford to look up at him. I've been reviewing some old cases. Charlotte Hayes, for instance. The name hit like a bullet. Bradford's smile flickered for a fraction of a second. Ancient history. Tragic accident. Nothing accidental about it. Thomas pitched his voice to Carrie. Just like there's nothing accidental about your plans for my upcoming boating mishap during the Chun depositions, Bradford recovered quickly. Causing a scene won't help your reputation, Morrison. I'm not here to cause a scene, Thomas replied. I'm here to watch you fall. He nodded to Adrian Reynolds, who stood and clinked his glass for attention. The judge's voice filled the ballroom. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please. As many of you know, I've served on the federal bench for 20 years. In that time, I've seen many cases of corporate fraud, but none quite like what we've uncovered at Bradford Pharmaceuticals. Bradford's face darkened. What is this? The ballroom's display screens flickered to life. Rebecca's face appeared, her testimony crystal clear. James Bradford ordered Charlotte Hayes's murder when she threatened to expose illegal drug trials. He's been falsifying pharmaceutical test results for 20 years, leading to countless deaths. More screens activated. Financial records. Emails. Surveillance footage. Diana's work displayed Bradford's entire criminal empire for hundreds of witnesses. FBI. Nobody move. Catherine's voice thundered through the ballroom as her teams shed their evening wear, badges appearing. Bradford lunged for his phone. Nothing happened when he tried to access his accounts. Problems? Thomas asked quietly. Those offshore accounts seem especially unresponsive. Almost like someone froze them simultaneously across multiple jurisdictions. You can't prove anything, Bradford snarled, but his eyes darted frantically around the room. These are obvious forgeries. The evidence is quite real, Adrian announced, still commanding the room's attention. As are the federal indictments being served right now at every board member's table. Ms. Hayes, would you proceed? Diana's voice filled the ballroom. Displaying evidence packet 1. Charlotte Hayes murder timeline, reconstructed from Bradford's own encrypted servers. Grace stood frozen, watching her biological father's facade crumble as decades of crimes played across the screens. Nathan moved to her side, whispering something in her ear. Bradford's expression turned feral. You think you've won? I still have leverage. He grabbed Grace's arm. Tell them, Grace. Tell them how your real father. Take your hand off my daughter. Thomas's voice could have frozen hell. Your daughter? Bradford laughed harshly. They're my blood. My children. You were just a convenient. The rest disappeared in a grunt as Nathan's elbow slammed into Bradford's solar plexus. Grace wrenched free, backing away in horror as her illusions about James Bradford shattered. DNA doesn't make a father, Nathan said coldly, standing between Bradford and his sister. Actions do. Catherine's teams converged, weapons drawn. James Bradford, you're under arrest for the murder of Charlotte Hayes, conspiracy to commit murder, fraud. The list continued as Bradford was cuffed, his empire crumbling around him. Thomas watched dispassionately, noting how quickly Bradford's sycophants disappeared, leaving him alone in handcuffs. Grace approached Thomas slowly, tears streaking her makeup. Dad, I'm so sorry. The things I said. Later, Thomas said quietly, right now, we need to finish this. Rebecca stood apart, watching her carefully constructed world implode. Thomas met her gaze across the room. She'd played her part, reading her testimony perfectly for the cameras. Now she'd face the consequences of her choices. Adrian approached with federal marshals. We'll need statements from everyone. Ms. Walsh has arranged secure transport. Thomas nodded. Diana, send everything to the Justice Department. Server, account, piece of evidence. Let's make sure nothing disappears this time. Already done, Diana replied through the earpiece. 20 years of waiting, and my sister finally gets justice. Bradford struggled against the cuffs as he was led past Thomas. This isn't over, Morrison. I still have resources. No, you don't. Thomas's smile was terrifying in its calmness. Check your accounts, James. All of them. The ones in Singapore, Dubai, Switzerland. Amazing how quickly money vanishes when federal judges sign the right papers. You can't. I just did. You tried to steal my children. Planned to murder me. Used my own wife against me. Thomas leaned closer. Did you really think I'd let you keep a single penny to fight with? Bradford's face contorted. I'll still win. Blood calls to blood. They're my children. No. Thomas's voice turned arctic. They stopped being your children the moment you planned to use them as props in my murder. But don't worry, you'll have plenty of time to think about family while you're in prison. I hear they're reopening several suspicious deaths connected to your drug trials. Catherine's team led Bradford away as reporters swarmed the ballroom. Thomas watched his children huddle together, both looking lost and shaken. Get them home, he instructed Nathan. Use the secure car Diana arranged. I'll handle things here. Grace caught his arm. Dad, wait. I need to tell you. Tomorrow, Thomas said gently. Right now, you and Nathan need to be somewhere safe while we process arrests. After they left, Catherine joined Thomas. That was ruthlessly efficient. He tried to destroy everything I love. Thomas straightened his tie. I simply returned the favor. Bradford Pharmaceutical stock is already plummeting, Diana reported through the earpiece. Board members are being arrested across 3 continents. The empire's falling, Thomas. Good. Thomas surveyed the chaos of the ballroom. Make sure every journalist gets copies of the evidence. I want no chance of this being buried. Rebecca approached hesitantly. Thomas, your statement's been recorded. The immunity agreement is active. He didn't look at her. I suggest you leave Boston. Tonight, Catherine's team will arrange protective custody until the trials end. The children are no longer your concern. His tone brooked no argument. You conspired to have their father murdered. Actions have consequences, Rebecca. She flinched as if struck. I did love you in the beginning. No. Thomas finally turned to her. You loved the idea of me. The respectable cover story. The convenient father for Bradford's children. But you never loved me. If you had, none of this would have happened. Rebecca's composure cracked completely. She fled the ballroom as federal agents continued securing evidence and arrests. Adrian joined Thomas at the window. You've ended your career as a defense attorney. No client will trust you after this. Small price to pay for destroying Bradford. Thomas watched police lights flash below. Some things matter more than careers. Bradford will still have supporters. People who profit from his crimes. Let them come. Thomas's expression hardened. They'll learn what happens when you threaten my family. The ballroom slowly emptied as arrests completed and evidence was catalogued. Thomas remained, watching his reflection in the window. He'd built his reputation defending others. Now he'd destroyed that reputation to protect what mattered most. Worth it. His phone buzzed. A message from Nathan. Grace is asking for you. She needs her dad. Thomas smiled slightly. DNA didn't matter. Blood didn't matter. What mattered was being there, loving them, protecting them. Everything a real father did. We're done here, he told Catherine. Make sure everything's documented perfectly. Bradford will try to fight this. Let him try. Catherine's grin was fierce. We've got him dead to rights on multiple murders. Thomas left the chaos behind, heading home to his children. Bradford had played a long game, patient and calculating. But he'd never understood what Thomas had known all along. The most dangerous predator wasn't the one who struck first. It was the one who waited, watched, and then destroyed you so completely that you never recovered. Chapter 8. Justice Served. The federal courthouse buzzed with activity as Bradford's case dominated national headlines. Reporters crowded the steps, cameras flashing as Thomas Morrison strode past with Catherine Walsh and Diana Hayes flanking him. Inside the courtroom, Bradford sat in an orange jumpsuit, his former arrogance replaced by barely contained rage. His legal team, once Boston's most formidable defense attorneys, looked increasingly desperate as evidence mounted. The prosecution calls Diana Hayes, the federal prosecutor announced. Diana took the stand, her composure perfect as she faced her sister's killer. I began investigating James Bradford's activities the day after Charlotte died. For 20 years, I tracked transaction, shell company, every suspicious death connected to his drug trials. And what did you discover? Bradford Pharmaceuticals conducted illegal trials on terminal patients in Eastern Europe. When patients died from drug complications, they falsified death certificates. I found evidence of 37 confirmed deaths, with hundreds more suspected. Bradford's lawyer stood. Objection. Speculation. Overruled. The judge responded. The witness is a certified digital forensics expert presenting documented evidence. Diana continued, her voice steady. Bradford used a network of offshore accounts to launder profits from these illegal trials. The same financial network he used to pay for Charlotte's murder when she threatened to expose him. The evidence unfolded. Email chains, bank transfers, surveillance footage. Diana had built an airtight case proving Bradford's decades of crimes. During a recess, Catherine approached Thomas in the hallway. Rebecca's testimony is next. Are you sure about this? She made her choice, Thomas replied. Let her face the consequences. Rebecca entered looking haunted, her designer clothes replaced by a simple black suit. She avoided Thomas's gaze as she took the stand. Mrs. Morrison, the prosecutor began. Please tell the court about your relationship with the defendant. Rebecca's testimony spilled out. Her college relationship with Bradford, the planned deception of Thomas, years of secret contact culminating in the plot to murder her husband. He said it would be clean, she whispered. An accident during the Chun depositions. The children would have their real father. And you agreed to this plan?
Yes.
Rebecca's voice broke. I helped him arrange everything. The offshore accounts, the fake evidence against Thomas, the plans to take the children overseas. Bradford's mask finally cracked. He lunged to his feet, shouting, You treacherous bitch! After everything I did for you, remove the defendant. The judge ordered as marshals restrained Bradford. The prosecution's case continued relentlessly. Nathan's recordings played for the jury, Bradford's voice crystal clear as he planned Thomas's murder. Grace sat in the gallery, tears streaming as she heard her biological father's true nature exposed. Expert witnesses detailed Bradford's pharmaceutical fraud. Former employees testified about falsified drug trials. Financial experts traced millions in laundered money. Each testimony added another nail to Bradford's coffin. The defense's attempts to discredit witnesses backfired spectacularly. When they tried attacking Diana's credibility, she produced even more damning evidence. When they suggested Thomas had orchestrated a frame-up, Catherine's meticulous investigation proved otherwise. After 3 weeks of testimony, the jury needed only 4 hours to reach their verdict. On the charge of first-degree murder in the death of Charlotte Hayes, we find the defendant guilty. The verdicts continued guilty on multiple counts of conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, money laundering, and racketeering. Bradford's empire hadn't just fallen. It had been obliterated. James Bradford, the judge intoned, You have been convicted of heinous crimes spanning decades. You used your wealth and position to murder innocent people, corrupt officials, and destroy families. This court sentences you to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. Bradford turned to Thomas as marshals led him away. This isn't justice, it's revenge. You've destroyed everything I built. No, James. Thomas's voice carried clearly. You destroyed yourself. I simply exposed what you really are. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed as Bradford's pharmaceutical empire imploded. Stock prices crashed as investigations spread to board members and executives across 3 continents. Millions in hidden assets were seized, earmarked for victim compensation. Rebecca waited by Thomas's car after sentencing. What happens now? You kept your immunity deal, Thomas replied coldly. Take it and disappear. The children don't need your poison in their lives. They're still my children.
No.
Thomas's tone could have frozen fire. You lost any right to call them that when you helped plot their father's murder. The custody agreement is final. Leave Boston, Rebecca. Don't make me show you how much evidence I held back. She fled to the waiting taxi, finally understanding the full magnitude of her choices. Catherine joined Thomas, watching Rebecca's departure. That's the last loose end tied up. Bradford's auxiliary companies are being seized. Diana's tracking down his last hidden accounts. It's over. Almost. Thomas checked his phone. A message from Grace. Dad, can we talk? Really talk? At home, Grace waited in his study. She'd spent weeks processing revelations about her biological father, struggling to reconcile the charming man who promised her the world with the murderer exposed in court. I'm so sorry, she whispered as Thomas entered. The horrible things I said to you. Choosing him over you? You were manipulated by experts, Thomas said quietly. Bradford and your mother spent years poisoning you against me, but I believed them. I was so excited about Paris, the car, having my real father. Grace's voice cracked. I couldn't see what was right in front of me, that I already had a real father. One who loved me no matter what. Thomas hugged his daughter. Biology be damned. She was his, and felt decades of tension finally release. Bradford had tried using blood ties to steal his children. Instead, he'd taught them that true family came from love, not DNA. Nathan appeared in the doorway. They're announcing the seizure of Bradford's overseas assets. Diana says they found accounts we didn't even know about. Thomas nodded. Good. Every penny goes to his victims' families. Bradford won't have anything left to fight with. The news continued reporting aftershocks. Bradford's entire board of directors indicted. Corrupt FDA officials arrested. International pharmaceutical regulations overhauled in response to the scandal. Charlotte Hayes's case officially closed. Justice served after 20 years. Diana's team tracked Bradford's last hidden resources, ensuring nothing remained of his criminal empire. The man who once commanded billions now sat in federal prison, his legacy destroyed as thoroughly as the lives he'd ruined. Rebecca relocated to Seattle under the immunity agreement's terms. She sent one final letter to the children, which they chose not to read. Some bridges, once burned, couldn't be rebuilt. Grace abandoned her dreams of material luxury, seeing how emptiness had driven her mother's choices. Instead, she began working with support groups for young people affected by family violence, turning her pain into purpose. The evening news showed Bradford's appeal being denied, his claims of frame-up dismissed by the appeals court. Thomas watched the report with his children, feeling no satisfaction, only certainty that justice had finally been served. Bradford had built his empire on lies, manipulation, and murder. In the end, those same tools became weapons for his destruction. He'd never understood that Thomas Morrison's true strength wasn't in his legal skills or strategic mind. It was in his capacity to love so fiercely that no force, not blood, not money, not power, could break the bonds he'd forged with his children. Chapter 9. New Beginnings. 1 year after Bradford's conviction, Thomas Morrison sat in his expanded corner office at Morrison & Walsh. The view of Boston Harbor reminded him daily of how close he'd come to becoming another tragic accident in Bradford's long list of victims. The morning's newspaper lay on his desk, the headline stark. Bradford's final appeal denied. Life sentence stands. Thomas filed it away in a growing collection of justice served. Catherine entered without knocking, their partnership now comfortable with such informalities. Diana's here with the quarterly security report. And there's something else you should see. Diana Hayes followed, her laptop under her arm. In the year since her sister's killer had been convicted, she transformed their makeshift investigation team into Boston's premier digital forensics unit. Morrison & Walsh now specialized in exposing corporate crimes that other firms wouldn't touch. Bradford's last overseas account finally cracked, Diana reported, pulling up complex financial data. He had one final failsafe hidden in a North Korean bank. $300 million, now frozen and being processed for victim restitution. Thomas nodded. Make sure Charlotte's foundation gets priority funding. How's the new security system performing? Perfectly. No one gets within digital breathing distance of our files now. Diana's smile held satisfaction. Everything we learned taking down Bradford became a template for protecting other families from corporate predators. Catherine settled into a chair. Speaking of families, how are the kids doing? See for yourself. Thomas gestured to his desk photo, himself with both children at Nathan's recent graduation. The boy who'd risked everything to save his father now headed to Harvard Law, determined to follow in Thomas's footsteps. Nathan's already talking about specializing in corporate crime prosecution, Thomas said, pride evident in his voice. He wants to make sure no other family goes through what we did. And Grace, working with abuse survivors while taking psychology classes. She's turned her experience into something meaningful. Thomas checked his watch. She's actually presenting at a victims advocacy conference next week. Bradford's case study is apparently required reading now. Diana's laptop chimed with an alert. Rebecca stayed in Seattle. No attempts to contact the children in 8 months. Good. Thomas's tone held finality. Some betrayals couldn't be forgiven, no matter the excuses. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Morrison, the Attorney General's office is on line 1. They want to discuss expanding the pharmaceutical industry oversight protocols you proposed. Put them through in 5 minutes. Thomas turned to Catherine. Ready to help rewrite industry regulations? Always. Catherine grinned. Who would have thought taking down Bradford would lead to reforming the entire system? It had to be done. Thomas stood, straightening his tie. Bradford wasn't an anomaly. He was a symptom of corporate culture that valued profits over lives. We changed that. Diana closed her laptop. Charlotte would be proud. Her death exposed decades of corruption and probably saved thousands of lives. Justice comes in many forms, Thomas agreed. Speaking of which, how's the new case looking? Catherine spread files across his desk. Another pharmaceutical company, similar pattern to Bradford's operation. Testing drugs on terminal patients in developing countries. Hiding deaths, bribing officials. They never learn. Thomas began reviewing evidence. Set up a meeting with Adrian. We'll need federal warrants again. Already scheduled. Catherine's smile turned predatory. They're calling us corporate killers now, you know? The firm that brings down corrupt executives. Let them talk. Thomas's expression hardened. Bradford taught us how these predators operate. Now we use that knowledge to stop others like him. His phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. Family dinner tonight? Grace is cooking. Wouldn't miss it, Thomas replied, glancing at the photo again. The children might not share his DNA, but they shared something far more valuable. The strength to face adversity and emerge stronger. Diana gathered her equipment. Monthly security updates are complete. Oh, and that reporter from the Times called again. They want to do a feature on the firm's transformation. Decline. Thomas moved to the window. We're not here for publicity. We're here to protect families from people like Bradford. Catherine and Diana exchanged knowing looks. They'd watched Thomas rebuild himself after Bradford's betrayal, transforming from a defense attorney who protected the wealthy into a crusader who brought down corporate criminals. The Attorney General's office is holding, his assistant announced. Thomas straightened his shoulders. Another day, another battle against corporate corruption. Bradford had tried to destroy him using family as a weapon. Instead, he'd created something more powerful, a team dedicated to exposing criminals who thought themselves untouchable. Put them through, Thomas instructed. He turned to Catherine and Diana. Ready to change the world again? Their grins matched his determination. Together, they'd turned personal vengeance into systemic justice. Bradford's betrayal had cost Thomas his old life, but given him something better, purpose. Later that evening, Thomas left the office early, driving home to the family dinner Grace promised. The house no longer held memories of Rebecca's betrayal. Instead, it had become a sanctuary, proof that real family transcended biology. Grace met him at the door, the angry, materialistic teenager gone. In her place stood a young woman who understood that true value lay in character, not possessions. Nathan's attempting to cook too, she warned, laughing. We might need takeout backup. Thomas hugged his daughter, remembering how close he'd come to losing her to Bradford's manipulation. As long as we're together, the food doesn't matter. Inside, Nathan had spread law books across the kitchen counter, studying even while attempting to help Grace cook. Dad, did you really argue the Chin case while setting up Bradford's takedown? Focus on your own studies, Thomas advised, but pride warmed his voice. His son had inherited his strategic mind and sense of justice, proving that true inheritance had nothing to do with DNA. The kitchen filled with conversation and laughter as they prepared dinner together. No mentions of Bradford, Rebecca, or the past. Those wounds had healed, leaving them stronger, wiser, and more united. Thomas watched his children. Because they were his children, biology be damned, and felt the last weight lift from his shoulders. Bradford had tried using blood ties to destroy his family. Instead, he taught them all that real family bonds came from love, trust, and shared values. His phone buzzed one final time that evening, Diana reporting that Bradford's last appeal option had expired. The man who'd tried destroying Thomas's life would die in prison, his empire dismantled, his legacy one of cautionary tales. Thomas silenced the phone. Work could wait. Right now, he had everything that mattered right here. 2 children who'd chosen their real father over blood, and the strength to protect other families from predators like Bradford. Some victories weren't measured in courtroom verdicts or newspaper headlines. They were measured in moments like this: family dinner with the children who'd faced darkness and emerged stronger, united by bonds that went deeper than DNA. Bradford had tried to steal Thomas's children, destroy his reputation, and take his life. Instead, he'd given them an unshakable truth. Family wasn't about biology. It was about choice, love, and the courage to stand together against any threat. As they sat down to dinner, Thomas looked at his children, both brilliant, both survivors, both choosing him as their father despite DNA, and knew that some battles were worth any price. He'd lost his defense career but gained something far more valuable: a chance to protect others from corporate predators, a partnership built on justice, and most importantly, a family bound by choice rather than blood. The perfect ending wasn't about revenge. It was about turning darkness into light, using Bradford's betrayal to fuel positive change. Together, they transformed tragedy into triumph, proving that the strongest families weren't built on DNA, but on love, trust, and the courage to choose what's right. Family dinner every Sunday? Grace suggested, passing the salad. No matter how busy we get. Count me in, Nathan agreed. Even during law school, Thomas smiled at his children. I wouldn't miss it for anything, because in the end, that's what mattered. Not Bradford's crimes or Rebecca's betrayal, but the family they'd built from the ashes of deceit. Stronger, wiser, and unshakably united. The perfect revenge wasn't destruction. It was living well, protecting others, and proving that love trumped biology every time. Just ask Thomas Morrison's children. They'd learned that lesson the hard way and emerged stronger for it. Epilogue: The Price of Betrayal. 10 years later, the Seattle Women's Correctional Facility stood gray and imposing against the clouded sky. Inside, Rebecca Morrison Bradford sat in the visitation room, her once perfect appearance now marked by prison-issued clothing and premature aging. Her immunity deal had protected her from Bradford's crimes, but not from her own subsequent choices. 3 years after relocating to Seattle, she'd attempted to contact Grace and Nathan, violating the strict terms of her custody agreement. When that failed, she tried using Bradford's hidden money funds she'd secretly kept from the investigation to hire private investigators to track her children. The attempted contact combined with financial fraud had earned her 8 years in prison. Visitor for Morrison Bradford, the guard announced. Diana Hayes entered, tablet in hand. She'd spent a decade building Morrison and Walsh's digital forensics division into the country's premier corporate crime investigation unit. Now she stood before the woman who'd helped destroy her sister's killer. Why are you here? Rebecca asked, her voice rough from disuse. Closing loose ends. Diana activated her tablet. We found your last hidden account. The one in Macau? Bradford's empire is finally, completely dismantled. Rebecca's hands trembled. That money was for the children. The children want nothing from you. Diana cut in. But you knew that when you tried hiring those investigators. How did that work out? Rebecca's carefully maintained facade cracked. I just wanted to explain. To make them understand. Understand what? How you helped plot their father's murder. How you poisoned them against the man who raised them. Diana's voice held no sympathy. Or maybe how you're still lying, even now. She placed photos on the table, surveillance images of Rebecca meeting with Bradford's former associates, attempting to access frozen accounts. You never stopped, Diana continued. Even after everything, you're still trying to get Bradford's money. That's why you're really here, isn't it? Not because you contacted Grace and Nathan, but because you got caught trying to steal from victim compensation funds. Rebecca's shoulders slumped. How are they? My children. They're not your children anymore. You lost that, right? Diana pulled up more images. But since you asked, Grace runs the country's largest support network for families affected by corporate crime. She's married now, expecting her first child. She kept Morrison as her surname. Rebecca flinched. Nathan? Diana continued relentlessly. He's a federal prosecutor specializing in pharmaceutical fraud. He's engaged to Catherine Walsh's daughter. They're planning a spring wedding. And Thomas? Diana's smile held no warmth. Morrison and Walsh just opened their fifth office. They've exposed 12 major corporate fraud cases in the past decade. The Justice Department considers them the gold standard for corporate crime investigation. She leaned forward. But that's not what you really want to know, is it? You want to know about James. Rebecca's composure cracked completely. Is he dead? 3 months ago in prison. Turns out even maximum security couldn't protect him from all the enemies he'd made. The official report says prison violence, but Diana shrugged. Let's just say a lot of people lost family members to his drug trials. Tears streaked Rebecca's makeup. I loved him. In the beginning, I really loved him.
No.
Diana gathered her materials. You loved what he represented. Money, power, excitement. You helped him murder my sister. Plotted to kill your husband. Used your own children as pawns. Love had nothing to do with it. She stood to leave. Your parole hearing is next month. Don't bother applying for early release. Thomas has arranged for every victim's family to testify. You'll serve your full sentence. Wait, Rebecca called desperately. Please, tell them I'm sorry. Tell them I understand now. Save it for your therapist. Diana paused at the door. You know what the saddest part is? You had everything. A loving husband, beautiful children, a perfect life. You threw it away for a man who saw you as nothing but a convenient tool. She left Rebecca sobbing in the visitation room, her designer dreams replaced by prison reality. Across the country, Thomas Morrison stood in his expanded Boston office, reviewing case files with his team. The Bradford method, their systematic approach to exposing corporate crime, had revolutionized financial investigation. Photos lined his walls. Grace's wedding, Nathan's law school graduation, family dinners that proved blood meant nothing compared to love. Catherine Walsh entered, grinning. The Singapore team just checked in. They found evidence linking New Globe Pharmaceuticals to illegal trials in Myanmar. Like Bradford taught us, follow the money. Thomas pulled up financial records. How's Sarah's wedding planning going? Your future daughter-in-law is terrifyingly efficient. Catherine laughed. Nathan's perfect for her. They both have that same obsession with justice. Grace arrived for their weekly strategy meeting, her pregnancy evident beneath her professional attire. She transformed her pain into purpose, building a nationwide network supporting families affected by corporate crime. Her organization worked closely with Morrison and Walsh, ensuring victims received both justice and healing. Mom tried reaching out again. She announced without preamble. Another letter from prison. Thomas watched his daughter carefully. And I burned it. Grace settled into a chair. Nathan did the same with his. We made our choice years ago. The father who raised us means more than the biology that betrayed us. Speaking of choices, Catherine interjected. Adrian Reynolds called. He's retiring from the federal bench. Wants Nathan to consider taking his seat. Thomas smiled slightly. His son, who'd risked everything to save him, now stood poised to become the youngest federal judge in Boston's history. The boy who'd chosen justice over blood had grown into a man who dispensed it. Diana joined them via secure video link. Rebecca's last account is cleaned out. Every penny transferred to victim compensation. Bradford's empire is officially extinct. Good. Thomas turned to the window. How did she take it? Like someone finally facing consequences. Prison's been educational for her. Diana's image flickered. Oh, and Bradford's death is officially ruled random violence. No one looking too closely at that. They all understood the unspoken message. Justice came in many forms. Adrian Reynolds himself arrived for their afternoon meeting. Age had slowed his steps, but not his mind. Remember when I warned you this could end your career, Thomas? You were right. It ended my career as a defense attorney. Thomas gestured to the bustling office. And gave me something better. A chance to protect other families from predators like Bradford. Speaking of protection, Adrian produced a file. There's chatter about Rebecca requesting early release. Don't worry. I've arranged for victim impact statements from every family Bradford hurt. She'll serve every day of her sentence. Grace touched her growing belly protectively. She made her choice. Now she lives with it. The day continued with its rhythm of justice, corporate crimes exposed, victims supported, families protected. Morrison and Walsh had become more than a law firm. It was a legacy built from betrayal's ashes. That evening, Thomas hosted his weekly family dinner. Grace and her husband, Nathan and Sarah, even Catherine and Diana joined via video. They'd formed their own family, bound by choice rather than blood. A toast, Nathan proposed, to the father who taught us that real family has nothing to do with DNA. And to justice, Grace added, which comes to everyone eventually. Thomas surveyed his family, the daughter who'd overcome betrayal to help others heal, the son who'd chosen truth over blood, the partners who'd helped him transform tragedy into triumph. Bradford and Rebecca had tried destroying this, using family as a weapon. Instead, they'd created something stronger, a family forged by choice, tempered by adversity, and dedicated to protecting others from similar pain. The evening ended with plans for the future. Nathan's judicial nomination, Grace's expanding support network, new cases to tackle. Life moved forward, justice continued, and family endured. In her Seattle prison cell, Rebecca Morrison Bradford read the court's denial of her early release appeal. The document detailed victim impact statements, including words from her own children declaring her dead to them. She'd chosen wealth and excitement over love and loyalty. Now she had neither. James Bradford's grave remained unmarked, his billions reduced to prison commissary pennies before his violent end. The man who'd built an empire on lies died unmourned, his legacy one of destruction. But in Boston, Thomas Morrison's legacy grew stronger each day. His children carried forward his commitment to justice. His firm protected families from corporate predators. His example proved that true strength lay not in wealth or power, but in the choice to stand for what's right. The betrayal that should have destroyed him had instead created something unbreakable, a family bound by love, a mission driven by justice, and a legacy that would endure long after Bradford's empire had crumbled to dust. Grace's unborn daughter would never know her biological grandfather or the grandmother who'd chosen him over family. Instead, she would know her true grandfather, the man who'd taught her parents that real family transcended blood. The price of betrayal had been high, but the rewards of loyalty proved greater. In the end, Thomas Morrison hadn't just survived his enemies' plots. He'd turned their weapons against them, using their own tactics to destroy their empire while building something far more valuable. A family that chose each other, every single day. Justice came in many forms. Sometimes it wore prison orange in Seattle. Sometimes it lay in unmarked graves. And sometimes it sat at family dinners in Boston, proving that the strongest bonds weren't forged by DNA, but by the choice to love, protect, and stand together against any storm. That was Thomas Morrison's true victory, not the destruction of his enemies, but the unshakable family their betrayal had helped him build. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.